Aloha and welcome to Lucy's Paradise podcast. I survived Hurricane Lala and I want to talk to you guys about it. Okay, so let me just clarify because I know there are going to be people that don't realize that Hawaii has more than one island. The Big Island is not the only island of Oʻahu, just so you guys know. But I don't live on the Big Island, I live on Oʻahu. And basically, this particular hurricane that then got downgraded to a storm mostly hit the Big Island, and then Oʻahu was able to feel a lot of it as well in terms of rain and a whole bunch of rain and wind, very, very strong winds, which is basically the difference between when they start categorizing it as a hurricane instead of just a storm, is how fast the winds are going. And Oʻahu was affected in a lot of different ways, besides some flooding, but mostly with downed trees and power outages. And I've had a lot of conversations with friends. I kind of want to give you guys a little bit of my experience and talk candidly, and then be able to give you guys actual details and numbers about all of the things as well, which is the more boring stuff that you guys might not really care about. So I'll kind of wait for that for the end of this video. But I think in a lot of my conversations with friends and different people and things like that on the island, we just did also feel a very sense of frustration because, you pay so much money in electric bills that you just are like, why does my power always go out? And I can talk about that from a little bit of experience when I lived in, at one point, the Kapalina Beach homes, and our power went out all the freaking time, all the time. That particular neighborhood is very close to the ocean over there in Eva Beach. And so there must be, compared to all of the other infrastructure here on island, there must be something about that particular infrastructure that is more susceptible probably to the elements because we're next to the beach, right? Which I would say is probably the biggest thing. Let's just assume that all of the infrastructure is old as hell, okay? Because we live on a very old island. But I'll go over more of the specific details on that later. But just from my own experience, I've kind of been feeling that frustration. I know for a fact places like Wahiawa, Mililani, their power went out. I know St. Louis Heights, some people had power going out for about an hour or so. And this is all just from friends and family that are telling me, hey, our power just went out, our power has been on or whatever. Luckily for me, it's still windy now. So that's my door slamming from the wind. The wind was very strong, which was the biggest thing. And the common theme was that people were very frustrated with the power outages, which makes sense because it's very inconvenient. I know for a fact that Mililani's power went out for at least 13 hours. Some people more than a day, and some people still don't have power, which is very, very sad. Unfortunately, that didn't happen to me, so I'm very thankful for that. However, I try to just roll with the punches, and if it happens, it happens. It's pretty much a gamble, so you never know when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen in your neighborhood or not. It really just depends. Sometimes it's self-service or something. Oftentimes, I know we've had that happen a few times with Spectrum and T-Mobile and whatever, where they'll have an outage or something. So when that kind of thing, you do kind of have a sense of guilt when I'm the only person in my family that had power or whatever. What made it worse is that they didn't want you driving anywhere. So for example, my mom lives in Mililani, which is maybe about 20 to 30 minutes from where I live. I live closer to town, basically, but I don't live in town, but I live closer to town. But it was a little bit frustrating. I kind of felt like I couldn't really do much because when I did pull up a lot of things of what's going on, they were saying specifically don't drive in Mililani because there were so many downed trees. And I do kind of want to discuss that. And I was kind of at first feeling a lot of frustration, like, man, why can't we just use this tourist money or use all of this money that we pay for electricity to like fix our infrastructure? And we have a make-believe choo-choo train going from nowhere to nowhere. Like, make it make sense. Like, why, when I lived in Kapalina, why was everyone's electric bill like $700? Like, I barely used my AC when I lived over there, and yeah, the bills are crazy. So it's frustrating. However, I did do a lot of research, and I've actually discovered a lot in doing that research. But the first thing I want to go over, first and foremost, is kind of what the damage with Hurricane Lala and basically kind of like my own experience with it. So obviously it was a lot of heavy wind and rain, and you can usually see it coming, right? Because then it starts raining off and on. You're like, oh my God. And then it gets worse and worse, and it just gets to the point where like you don't want to go anywhere because you can't really drive in the freeway with winds like that crazy. So I was kind of keeping in touch with my buddies from work because we work closer to Waikiki, and that is a flood area. If you don't know and you live in Hawaii and you don't know, or you're moving to Hawaii and you don't know like what the flood areas are, there's actually a map online that'll show you specifically all of the like flood areas, and you can look at that map, kind of determine like where your house is, in relation to that map. And then it just helps you know what areas to stay away from, because they're obviously going to flood faster than the areas that aren't flood areas. So good stuff to know. But I took a lot of notes and I watched the press conference, which again, at first there was a lot more frustration and annoyance watching this press conference of like the mayor and the governor like patting themselves on the back, like, oh my God, we did so great. Like, we mitigated it, which I don't really think you mitigated shit, because all we did was really just wait out the storm, and you can't really do anything. And it's not like you stopped people's houses from not losing power. So it's like, what are you guys even having this press conference for? Like high-fiving each other? It's just weird to me. But anyway, like I said, Kapalina lost power for 13 hours, and I have a lot of friends and old neighbors there. Mililani, about 12 to 13 hours. St. Leo's Height, about an hour, like I said. Update from Josh Green and Mayor Rick Blangiardi about the hurricane and tropical storm Lala. Basically, HPD had 162 overnight calls for service, were reported as Lala passed south of Oʻahu. So basically, on Saturday, we got the most of it. Saturday evening, about 9 p.m. into early morning Sunday. So that was pretty much like during that time. I woke up at like, I want to say like 4 or 5 a.m.-ish. No, maybe like 3 or 4 a.m.-ish. I have this like big shelf. I was going to show it to you guys, but it's like way too long. It's literally like this long. And it goes like, I had it like up here, kind of like at the foot of my bed. Okay, if you can imagine that. And I just had like Pokemon cards on there and shit. Like, I didn't have very much like on it, but that thing completely fell off the wall and could have honestly killed me, and it didn't. So that's why I'm like, oh my God, I survived Hurricane Lala. I was like, did we just have like an earthquake? Like, why did that just come out of my wall? Anyway, and that thing was drilled down with like a million things, and it didn't have that much on it. So I was very concerned. There was some sort of shift for sure, because that and like another shelf that I just put up like a week ago came off. So I'm sketched out. I don't think I'm going to put that big one back on there. But yeah, that I almost died. But anyway, I didn't die, and I woke up. Then like an hour later, my phone was going off with that stupid Amber Alert sound or whatever. And it was like, do not drive, imminent danger, you're going to die, blah, 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 blah. You will not live, like all this shit. And I was like, bro, what the hell? I was like, okay, I won't drive anywhere. So didn't drive anywhere. But as you can imagine, there's all kinds of trees and stuff everywhere. So anyway, continuing on, down trees, damage reports. The city reported 149 reports involving fallen trees, branches, damage or blown roofs, and downed power lines. That's, I think, the saddest thing, is people's actual roofs flying off, which is like, oh, that's just so horrible. So that's like probably, besides flooding, is the worst of it, which I think the Big Island had the worst damage of all. But there were some kind of things like that happened on Oahu as well. Power outages. At one point on Sunday afternoon, about 113,000 Hawaiian Electric customers on Oahu were without power. Earlier statewide Oahu outages were even higher. Oahu peaked about 220,000 customers without power during the storm. I think what happened is in the middle of the storm, a lot of people got power, or like their power, the 220,000. Then the next morning, I know a lot of people's power ended up getting turned on somehow with whatever type of fixing they were doing with that. You guys have to remember too, like a lot of our power lines are above ground, and we have a lot of different factors that, branches falling on power lines, obviously it's going to go out. Hawaii Fire Department received 629 calls for service from 7 a.m. Saturday through 9 a.m. on Sunday. That's a lot. And EMS, 408 calls, including more than 200 hospital transports. This is according to the press conference that the mayor and the governor put that had on YouTube, and they had it like live or something like that. Anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, frustrated, talking to friends, kind of criticizing the invisible choo-choo train we have that goes from nowhere to nowhere. And like, why don't we spend that money on infrastructure? But I found out a lot of stuff too, right? So, and this is more for the people that don't live in Hawaii, because I think the people that live in Hawaii kind of know like what we're dealing with. The people that don't live in Hawaii, I guess, unless you've lived on some other island, you might not know. But I was really just doing a lot of research and trying to figure out why Hawaii's electrical infrastructure seems so fragile, right? But like also like, is this something that can be fixed? So obviously a lot of our distribution lines are above ground. Poles and overhead wires are exposed. So you're talking wind, falling trees, branches, salt air also, because we're right by the ocean, and heavy rain. This all can damage all of that. Hawaii is isolated. We can't just grab energy from, another island or state nearby, because there's no other state nearby. And the islands are like, we're all pretty isolated. Every island is isolated in its own way. So we're screwed on that front. The equipment operates in a brutal environment. We have UV rays, again, humidity, salt, intense vegetation growth, and tropical weather obviously accelerates corrosion. So there's all these factors as well, which makes sense, totally makes sense. A lot of the infrastructure is just straight up old. Okay, Hawaii has been gradually replacing poles, things like this. And this is kind of like what I was interested in and like researching. Undergrounding, if you think about it that way, is extremely expensive here. Being able to put power lines underground, like I don't think we could even do that if we tried. There's just too much involved with that. I think if you guys even look at like us just building a rail, and they were like building just rail stations, like they were hitting things underneath the ground on accident and like having to fix that to then continue doing something that they weren't even doing. They weren't even really putting, or they weren't, to my knowledge, they weren't really putting it like crazy deep in the ground. But I don't know all the details, but it just seemed like it wasn't good. Like, it's not good. We can't really dig down. You know what I mean? We're a fucking island. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, all things to think about. Vegetation, huge vulnerability for us because we're an island. And not only are there going to be branches and things like that, like I've said already, but that can make it tough, right? So that's basically what's happening when the storm or the hurricane hit us, is all these branches are flying everywhere, and it's basically effing up all the poles. So it makes sense that we're going to lose power to some extent, right? But as I've gone more into my research, Hawaii is trying to change how it generates electricity. So the state is integrating large amounts of rooftop solar, utility scale renewables, batteries, while simultaneously trying to harden an older grid. Apparently, from what I've figured out, where is it? Hawaii PUC approved a $189.7 million climate adaptation, transmission, and distribution resilience program for Hawaii Electric Systems. The federal government subsequently awarded about $95 million substantially offsetting the cost to customers. That program includes stronger transmission infrastructure, critical circuit and pole hardening, hazard tree removal, flood monitoring, and some undergrounding. I think in Mililani, you guys might have noticed in the last few years, they were like cutting a lot of trees down. That could potentially be part of it. Also, like they really try to make Mililani pretty, so that's a little bit of it too. There's also a separate, and I didn't know this, 2025-2027 wildfire mitigation program for which Hawaiian Electric requested recovery of roughly $350 million, about $270.4 million in capital spending, and $79.9 million in operating expenses. Again, all of these hundreds of millions of dollars are spread across Oʻahu, Maui County, and the other Hawaii islands. So obviously, the island that also takes the most damage is probably going to be, well, the Big Island is also the biggest island, so, but we're more populated, just saying. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know how they distribute the money that way. So by comparison, let me see. Okay, so the original Oʻahu resilience schedule called for only about 4 circuit miles of lateral undergrounding through 2027. So they actually are trying to do some undergrounding. By comparison, that same Oʻahu plan targeted 170 critical poles hardened/replaced, 81 critical transmission structures hardened, 13 critical circuits hardened, 800 hazard trees removed. No, the trees, save the trees. Just kidding. 4 circuit miles undergrounded. I don't even know. And I have links to all of this stuff, which I might just put in the video, just so that you guys can look at it. And allegedly, that's what they're using the money for, right? That's all I'm saying. I don't know why we have a choo-choo train that goes to nowhere either, and I hope they do really put the money into this, because it just kind of feels a little embarrassing when we always lose power, you know what I'm saying? But it makes sense. It makes sense. So I've definitely been overcritical, but I think the thing about it is that I just obviously don't support corruption, and I feel like there's a lot of things that become ignored and set to the back burner here. Like, for example, let's renovate Waikiki to make it pretty for tourists, but let's not spend money on our infrastructure, right? So like those are things that like frustrate me. Like I see construction, and don't get me wrong, there are some construction that's like super crucial anyway. Like I don't want, you know, sidewalks should be reconstructed and streets should be reconstructed, and we all know how many potholes are here in Hawaii, right? But I'm just saying that I actually tried to research a lot of this stuff because I was feeling a lot of things. A lot of people were making a lot of comments as well. And so I was like, I want to look into this more. Obviously, that's not all of the information or whatever that's out there. That's just a lot of information that I ended up recovering and uncovering when I was kind of researching this stuff, wondering like, hey, like, why isn't our infrastructure better? And it really makes a lot of sense. I mean, we have so many factors, and when we have a hurricane and storm, it's not going to help us. We have old infrastructure, and then all of our stuff is above ground, and then we have trees and branches knocking everything over. I do know for sure when we had a storm a few years ago, and I was living at Kapalina, we had about 5 or 6 power lines that actually fell. Like they actually were toppled over. And I think it doesn't make sense, like to the naked eye, when you're not actually seeing a power line down, but it makes more sense when you actually see power lines down. So I think that year, like, it made sense. I was also like living on the beach, so very different. However, I feel like it's very ironic when places like Kailua and Mililani run out of power. I'm like, what? These are like some of the wealthiest towns that we have. Maybe not Mililani, but there's a lot of money in Mililani. If you drive around there, you'll see. So anyway, this storm was really nuts. It made a lot of power go out. It looked like Malka actually got hit pretty hard as well. I actually want to pull up some videos and show you guys kind of some of it. And then, yeah, that's it for this video. I just kind of wanted to share with you guys a little bit about what happened.
Tonight, heartbreaking scenes in the wake of Hurricane Lala. Communities left unrecognizable. with devastation striking entire towns. The hurricane turned tropical storm sideswiping the Hawaiian Islands with dangerous winds and torrential rains. Today, our team reached Na'alehu, one of the hardest hit communities on the Big Island.
And it is beyond clear in every direction you look here that this is the place
With all
that
the
took
trees
the
just
brunt
fell over.
of Lala's power.
The small town turned into a
Wow.
muddy debris field, with one of its only roads in buried beneath boulders, mud, and headstones.
Oh man.
Picked up and carried
horrible.
from a nearby cemetery.
Is this the
Oh my god. Okay, that's horrible. I hate to see that. Well, guys, I didn't research this before making the video, but apparently there's another hurricane coming or storm. I'm not sure. I might have to make another video at some point. I just wanted to make a quick video kind of about how this impacted Oʻahu. From what it sounds like from my neighbors and friends and stuff, mostly the power thing. There's a few people that had like trees actually fall on their cars. I don't think, at least not anyone I know that got hurt, thank God. But just walking around outside, walking all around, I walk all the time. Tons of trees everywhere, tons of branches. Even like younger trees you see just down. And I mean, the wind was strong enough that it actually ripped stuff off my wall inside of my apartment, which is like nuts. Things that like I've put up pretty well. So there was maybe some sort of shift. I don't think there was an earthquake, but very, very strong winds. And yeah, so just be prepared for if there is going to be something else. Get battery powered stuff, food, water, as if you just be prepared as if the power is going to go out again. Battery powered stuff is always great, and think kind of outside the box. Like if you're uncomfortable because there's no AC or fans, maybe get a portable fan, charge up all of your devices. I all my devices would die, and then I would have to play Monopoly for 15 hours or something. So I don't know, I would get hella bored, but I'm going to pray that we all don't have to go to work and that nobody gets hurt. And then, yeah, we all just have a little mini vacation and that it just passes and it's very minimal. So let's pray for that. And for everybody who was affected, I've seen a couple videos of like links of where you could help people. And I'll be posting those on my Instagram and stuff like that as they come out, as I see them. So if you guys are in the position where you can like donate and help people as well, you will be able to find that on my Instagram and stuff throughout the next couple weeks. And so, yeah, so check out my stories for that. And I think if you're planning on vacationing, I don't know, maybe wait a little bit, at least until you like, I don't know, just so you know, like it's freaking hurricane season. So I'm just saying, that's just a suggestion. I'm not, maybe just postpone your vacation for like a couple months or something. But yeah, I hope you guys have a really good week, have a good weekend, and praying for everybody who was affected, especially on the Big Island, family and friends. Please take care of yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching Lucy's Paradise Podcast. Aloha.